Yes, shalom, shalom, chabarim, shalom, chabarim. Let's call this one right here, Geechee, Gullah, Geechee, Gullah. That's our Yiddish. We, the black Jews of the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Yes, I, Rastafari, Kumbaya. Alright, Kumbaya. You know, people play with our language, you know, they call it all kind of stuff like broken English. I want to thank this brother, I say this brother, you know, in grace, you know. He be writing these articles in the opinion page on, I think, the New York Times. Like to show it to you, but this thought came to us. So let me just do something on this right here. You know, the Geechee and the Gullah. He did an article about what you call it. He did an article about Yiddish. Like people think Yiddish is a dying language, and how he kind of breaks down some things. Because one's on I platform, no doubt. You know, we did a couple of videos, and you know, we have to do a little bit more to really bring out the difference, because some of our Hebrew and Israelite and other ones are making some serious mistakes, you know, in understanding, or rather in misunderstanding, right? But at the same time, you know, of our teaching and disseminating, you know, we begin to recognize, you know, like as an Israelite, you know, as a Bait, a B'nai, a Ben Yisrael, you know, as a son of Israel, right? And when we say Israel, you know, we, the once lost, now found, we, the black Jews of the Lion of the tribe of Judah, right? Of the tribe of Yehuda. Some say Yahuda. That's part of it right there. We'll touch on that, right? Once lost, now found, Bait Yisrael. Yes, I, Rastafari. So you say Rastafari Israelites, Rastafari Yehudi. You know, on our channel here, Rastafari Jews. So you're probably checking out the title where we say that Geechee Gullah, Geechee Gullah is our Yiddish. And this is no disrespect, because I actually have Geechee Gullah roots. You know, I want to heal up Captain Azania, whether it's 10,000, that's what the title is, of the ISUPK. Some of the Israelites, you know, of different camps. In my father's house, there's many mansions. So if you can, you can hear, 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 hear. Geechee mama. Proverb. Oh. All right, so the Yiddish of the European Jews, you know, when we talk about being Jew, and this is not so much about that, but of course, when we say it's our Yiddish, people no doubt gonna be like, well, what are you talking about? So this is no disrespect to it. It's just to recognize our own patois, so to speak, you know? Because as a Rastafari, I'm an Aframerican Rastafari, you know, from this North Country. My roots, Geechee Gullah. That's why I wanted to hail up Captain Lasagna, you know, Captain of what is 10,000 ISUBK, you know, the Israelite, you know, Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. You can know my father's house, there are many mansions. You know, me and the brother was on next brother Ross Lawrence podcast, What You Know About God and the Chosen People. Also the healer brother Yaniv, yeah, elder. Got to reach out to you. He's part of the community over in the Demona, you know, Israel there, you know. So, you know, Israelites, you know, of different, you know, my father's house, many mansions. I as Rastafari, and as a Rastafari, you know, Israelite. Not so much 12 tribes of Israel, the organization, you know, Jamaican Rastafari organization. Yes, I actually, just for full disclosure, did become like a member of that particular, you could say, mansion, so to speak, of Rastafari. But even before that, recognizing myself as an Israelite, as a Beit Yisrael, Beta Israel. Right? When we say half of Israel, that's the Ethiopia connection, Israelites of Ethiopia connection. Now, here, in speaking of the Geechee and the Gullah, right? So the main difference between the Gullah and Geechee is the location of the people. So when we say Gullah Geechee, right? The Gullah Geechee, right? And so our particular way of speaking, this is the thing I noticed like years ago, and I was telling, you know, my sister, you know, the mother of my, you know, youths, you know, like at least two of my youths and everything. Hail up Hana, in case you checked, because she was saying that I kind of repeat this often. I've repeated it more than one time, the whole the Geechee Gullah connection. I think it's important to speak on these things. You know what I mean? That when I had a cousin, Octavia, I hope she's well and the family well. She came up years ago when I was getting into more like reggae and roots reggae. I love the roots reggae, dancehall back in them days, like the Shaba dancehall time, them time. And also like kind of like some of the Sizzler, time and the Capleton. But be that as it may, be that as it may, I recognize why even now there was an attraction to that. But as an Afro-American Rastafari, and this is no slight, we talk about some Jamaican Rasta fables and other things, and people try to make it be like, because you're Rastafari, therefore you must be Jamaican. You know what I mean? Or you're trying to be Jamaican. No, there's something about our roots, right? The Geechee Gullah, the way we speak, the way our people speak, right? The way many of our people in the Caribbean, right? Whether it's in Jamaica. In fact, a lot of we as Black Americans, we're closer in a sense with ones like, say, in Barbados, St. Croix, them sort of Virgin Islands. You know what I'm saying? We use the same money. There's a lot of things that commonalities right there. But I think we need to reason on these things as like when we talk about we being Hebrews as to the spirituality and the faith, and we being Israelites and Judahites, the once lost now found, the lost sheep of the house of Israel, as a people, right, over here in this Western hemisphere, especially in this North country. Right. So that's one thing I like to emphasize as we go forward, but not to the exclusion. But there's many of us as so-called Black American or as Afro-Americans. I'm saying the way our people back in the 30s, the Ethiopian World Federation time, Afro-American, Afro-American, right? Some good books by it says what's that book about facts about Ethiopia? Man, I always remember that book, but right now I'm not remembering the title about it. The Real Facts, the Real Facts about Ethiopia. It's a book from J.A. Rogers. I heard he's from the Caribbean or Caribbean roots up here. We all got to meet up in this North Country, right? And it's not just now. There's some not just rumors, but history that when a lot of ones were brought over to America, they went through the Caribbean, and some like to, this is a slight. I think it's a slight. They try to say, oh, they allowed the ones that came to America was the more tame ones, and they kept the rougher ones in Jamaica or something like that. Yeah, you better cut that out, because when we talk about, well, how we protected ourselves and bang against the, the Gentiles that were seeking to enslave us, we find that, the Geechee Gullah, about the Geechee, the Gullah Wars, in the historical liberations of our people. Like, we hear about some of the slave revolts in the Caribbean, maybe in Jamaica, the Paul Bogle. And I don't know what's up with the whole Moor, the Maroon thing, because I see one saying different things about the Maroon, this generation of even some Rasta, Jamaican Rastas. I need to be better schooled on that. Right? I'm just going to put that lay down the beamer, but I want to stick with this here, that the Geechee Gullah, right? The Gullah Geechee is like our Yiddish, right? Our Yiddish. This means like the Hebrew is our holy language, right? Are you Gullah or are you Geechee? Right? Are you Gullah or Geechee? Well, let's look at a few things right here. Let's see if we have this right here. This is an ongoing study, right? This is the ongoing study. Uman. That's interesting right there. I want to get that map, right? Okay, there we go right there. There we go. That's map right here. Let me kind of save this right here, because it depends on where, right? Where you from? Well, my people is from the Charleston area. Right? It's like from the Charleston, that area, South Carolina area. Some of our people is more from like the Georgia, and even getting down into parts of Florida, like St. Augustine and like Wilmington, going far north. Like that particular area you see right there. Right? So there's another page that I like to get something else right here, I gotta make my suitcase. But this is some stuff you can look up for yourself. What's the difference between Geechee and Gullah? There's a whole article out there. I'm just gonna say both of them. Right? I'm just saying both of them together right now. All right, let's see over here. What this map says right here. What this map right here says. Oh, it's not that. It's not that clear. Oh, here it just cleared up. Yeah. Okay. The Geechee, the Gullah Geechee Nation. All right. This is my peeps here. All right. This is my peeps right here. All right. This is my peoples. Right? Cause I remember I had a discussion with ones that was talking about, oh yeah, you Black Americans, you the city, you're up in the city, and there's a thing that we just a city, and like many of us didn't know like where we come from, where we come from. Right? I'm saying, I said we know about the islands. They were trying to make a point about like being from the islands on the islands, and I said, man, that's how we get divided and conquered. Because I didn't even make the story or like share the story of my one of my cousins came up years ago, and when she came up years ago, she I took her to a reggae store, like what was it called again? Iriites. Some of you might remember back in the days. Amy Wachtel, right? Amy Wachtel, Ma Shlomech, right? And I went to that store, to pick up some dubs and everything, and also, I had to spend time with my cousin. I knew of by name, but Octavia, that's her name right there. Our names are beautiful, awesome, right? Yeah, Octavia, ain't that something? Anyway, she was quiet. She was quiet. She didn't say nothing. You see what I'm saying? So we were right there in the Heritage corridor, right? She didn't say nothing at first, so I'm taking her around to like the, some of the reggae music, sites and everything. And you know what? She didn't speak for a while, and then all of a sudden, right? Just want to show one's the islands over here, right? Buford. I heard about this for years. I didn't even know the significance of places like Buford, right? And she didn't speak for a while. Like, I mean, I know she spoke, but she was very quiet, very quiet, yeah? And then at some point, she just started talking, but she was talking such a deep patois. Now, you have to remember that I, born up here in Brooklyn, Kings County, County of Kings, Brooklyn, do or die, Bed-Stuy, right? And so, you hear I speak now, so forth and so on. So, but getting into the reggae and the roots music, see the Georgia Sea Islands, getting into reggae and the roots music, I developed a little patois. Some of my family, some of the family who's from there say I lost it over the years. I don't know, right? Right? Be that as it may, right? Be that as it may, when I heard her speak, I was like, at first it was like, I didn't know whether she was just repeating. Some we hear reggae or something like that. Hear one say something in like the reggae or the Jamaican reggae patois or the Caribbean patois. We'll repeat it. Watagwan, something like that. I'm just doing that for example. But she was speaking more. She was like kind of excited. I think like the reggae store and the music and hearing different music. And since we cousins, you know what I mean? But we hadn't seen one another in such a long time, and this is like one of the first time we were really spending together. I'm taking her around to see the sights. You see South Carolina right there, right? And when she started to speak, I thought she was just like what they call in the Caribbean, they call like pop style. I thought she was pop styling. You know what I mean? Like basically when you just change your accent. I thought she was just changing her accent to, yeah, just to kind of get along. But then I noticed as she talked more and more that this is the way she speaks. And so now you have to check it out. I'm more getting into like the roots reggae, and also exploring Rastafari. But before that, recognizing myself as an Israelite, right? So I would like to let ones know that, the Israelite aspect even went all the way back to, even before, well before, even the Hebrew Israelites I came across on many of the streets, downtown Brooklyn, Manhattan, the other places. I did bike messaging for a while back in the the 90s and everything like that. And so some of the other bike messengers were Israelites. One particular brother, don't recall his name right now, but he was an Israelite. I gotta just thank him, man, because in a sense, like, he saved my life. Even though when we started talking about Rastafari back in St. John's and Nostrand and Brooklyn, some of them wanted to take our lives, So hail up Aya Congo as well. You remember them days too, right? Be that as it may, that really taught me something right there. With when I heard her say what she was saying. You know what I mean? So what are you, Geechee or Gullah? So there's a lot of ones, trying to decide what is Gullah Geechee. We call it the corridor, right? I embrace both, but of course, as I look into my Carolina roots, I'm gonna do a little more research so I can kind of more firmly kind of answer that. I call it the Gullah. Right now, Gullah, as I mentioned before to ones and ones, reminds me of things I've been studying like with Ethiopia and concerning the linguistics of Ethiopia and some of the people. There's people who in the pejorative sense are called Gala, the Gala, right? And so the Gullah. But then I found out some very interesting Hebrew connections, right? There are some very interesting Hebrew connections that I would like to explore and to share. So by saying that that it's our Yiddish, right? Like the patois. Now, I think this might be a best way to kind of explain. This might be the best way. So here they're calling this Gullah culture, right? And they're zooming in on South Carolina. So that's my people. So that's why I say Gullah, Gullah. But the Geechee, that was the last meme right there. Okay, so let's go over here. All right, I'm just sharing some of the historical pictures. So everyone, some of the Israelites be using pictures of our people. It's all a part of that. This is like my grandfather, and other elders, from that time. And what's interesting is that some of our people around the world still live in conditions that's not far removed from this. You know what I mean? We up here in this North country, right? So the Africa on one level, the basic level of the Africa, right? The Africa, wow, that looks just like a family picture of mine, right? I mean, this is family too, right? This is my peoples, right? These be my peoples, right? I'm just kind of showing some of this, so hopefully even others who are Rastafari, can recognize that we got something here, and we need to kind of like reason on this, right? Wow, she seems so familiar right there, as like an auntie, I mean, actually, some might even say some of her features, like looks like me, like depends, beauty's in the eye, behold, yeah. So this is more or less just to push the Gullah Geechee, right? He has a Rastafari, and also to show that we are aware, right? And we know and also need our people to help, keep us Gullah Geechee, because some of our people move to the north, right? Even that tree, even the symbol of the tree reminds me of like the people today are called the Oromo, right? The Oromo people, right? They pejoratively referred to as the Gala. They don't like that term, Gala. But as an academic, as a study, like in studying linguistics, I got to point that out, right? And over the years, there has been more emphasis amongst us, on that culture, because there was even some of the, brothers and sisters from the Caribbean, Jamaica, that felt like, oh, wow, they're giving us some culture and we don't have no culture, because they met us in the cities. They didn't know like how deep our roots go, right? And some of us didn't even know how deep our roots go. You know what I mean? So just want to share, wow, this is good here. This would be good for like the Torah portion, reading and feedings. You know what I mean? Working that land. Because some of the things that our parents who moved to these northern areas, you know, like a lot of our parents moved to these northern areas, just like a lot of ones came from the Caribbean to America, you know, for like all sort of quality, you know, quality of life things. You know what I'm saying? So I'm your brother Yadin. This is Yadin. Right, Yadon. Right here, you done know. Right, Yadin here. Rasta Adonis Tafari right here. Just sharing some of the, you know, Gullah Geechee culture. Right? And of course in this video when I say it's like the Yiddish. Yiddish is a language that certain Eastern Europeans use. And it's not Hebrew. It's not Hebrew. Again, it's not Hebrew. But because this is like their mother tongue, you know, such a thing called mother tongue, because it's their mother tongue, it does affect how they speak the Afro-Semitic Hebrew, right? Afro-Semitic. So Hebrew is Afro. The Afro part is the ham kind of link right there, Semitic, right? And that tells you a lot about when we talk about Hebrew. So if anybody say, oh, you're trying to be like the Jews, do you say Jew or Juju? Which one you say, Juju? Yeah, you know, but the Geechee, the Gullah people, right? The Geechee Gullah people. If they try to say that, well, just tell them the Hebrew language is Afro-Semitic, right? And because it's Afro-Semitic, right? Let's look at this right here. The last Gullah sermon, end of an era looms for an endangered language, right? But just as the article we saw by this brother, what's the name, John McColter, I wanted to do a whole video where I went into his article and kind of give a response, reaction, and some commentary on it. Y'all ready for Gullah Geechee lingo lesson of today? So there's many ones who are still keeping it, you know, keeping it real. But what it is, it's our mother tongue, so to speak. You know, they often call mother tongue because the mother is the first teacher. It's our mother tongue, right? It's our mother tongue. It's like the way we speak already affects, like how we, you know, the way we speak already affects like how we'll speak, like say when we learn Hebrew, right? And this is the same thing that's happened with, for example, a lot of European Jews, because their mother tongue is like the Yiddish, they would say, used to say the thing like shalom, sholem alaikum, shalom alaikum, right? Well, actually it's shalom alaikum, shalom alaikum, but they would say shalom alaikum, you know, like their accent, their mother tongue. But this also affects us. You know, there's a lot of my Rastafari brothers and sisters from the Caribbean, right? When we go over like the Amharic language of Ethiopian, we go through like some lesson. When I listen to the way that they speak, right? You know, the way that they speak, I can hear their mother tongue, the Caribbean, the patois. And you know what? That's okay, right? That's okay right there. That is something that is going to happen, right, concerning language and linguistics. So when I saw this brother's article, let me go over here. This is the article. This is a part 2 article, right? I want to address this right here, right? The luring dream that Black America needs to wake up from, right? You know, the whole Egypt, you know, and Africa, right? By this brother right here, by John McWhorter. He's an opinion writer, right? And this is on the New York Times. But it wasn't that article. Actually, it was this article, right? New York Times, like subscriber only newsletter. Let me see if I can show you. So when we saw this right here, where you saw my Yiddish, is a supposedly dying language that's thrillingly alive. Now, let's compare and contrast this over here with, keep that there, and let's go over here. Let's see if we can bring this one out. Where was that one? The one we just had zoomed in on, where it was talking about God done smile pun we, the Beaufort Isles. Let me get that one right there. God done smile pun we. God, Lord God. Right, God done smile on me. Geechee Gullah Africa seeds in the wind of the diaspora. Right, and that's also a powerful thing because we always speak about diaspora, you know, as even as Rastafari within that sense, but we are a diaspora. And I see the Hebrew link is that real connection, right? But here, this was on The Guardian, right? The last Gullah sermon, right? The last Gullah sermon, question mark, end of an era that looms for endangered. Let me see. Okay, that's on Instagram. All right, I'm gonna try to get, let me see if I can get this one over here. This might be a little bit, right? This might be a little bit larger here. Okay, here. So compare the article, right? Compare the article, right? Right? Compare the article here on The Guardian. You can probably look it up. The last sermon. Wow, look, yeah, last sermon. Right? The last Gullah sermon. End of an era looms for endangered language. And this is a Gullah Geechee pastor, right? Gullah, right? In South Carolina, Pastor Edward Alston is retiring. The Bible readings in Gullah, a unique dialect formed by enslaved, so-called enslaved, but we say enslaved because Slavics were people. You know, they want to push like a curse on us. They want to enslave us, make us like Slavic people, but we're not Slavs, right? Right? Formed by the enslaved people, right? Face an uncertain fate, right? So Sunni, Michaud, right? Michaud.com. Give thanks for this right here. Go over there and check that one out, right? But this is very important, right? But what I'm seeing, this may just be what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that it's something like, I keep going back over there. It's actually over here in this window. It's just like the Yiddish thing, right? The Yiddish is a supposedly dying language that's thrillingly alive. It's November 28th, 2024, right? Article. So you had this Yiddish, English, Yiddish, right? Now, ish in Hebrew means man, but ish can be a suffix that means like a little like, a little of in English. So don't get the two ishes confused. Now, it's this brother right here, right? This right here. I don't know him, but I was reading over his article, the first article, this one, and then the one about Africa. I said he brought up some very interesting points. So John McWhorter, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, McWhorter, opinion writer right here, right? So he brings out this whole article. This was the first one I kind of read through and reviewed, and it's interesting, right? Because many of our Hebrew and Israelite people, they confuse Hebrew, right, with Yiddish. You know what I mean? And then to kind of go out of their way and ignore some basic rules of right, of Afro-Semitic languages, like vowels. There's some tell you there's not certain vowels in there, and it's crazy, right? But perhaps we just need to kind of root ourselves in who we are. Right? Like in the Caribbean, they have their patois. Patois from one island community to another island community is different. For a lot of us, it might all sound the same. I remember with my Nana, there was a lot of like the Bayesian influence, like, Bahamas, Bayesian, places like St. Croix, the Virgin Islands, you know what I mean? Barbados, Bahamas, Bermuda, those places a little more so than say Jamaica, but Jamaica always was a part of the equation. Now, I think that some of that rumor that some slaves that were, they might have sent some harder slaves in Jamaica and sent some weaker ones, but if that's a way of like a pun and tongue and cheek or something to diss us, by some of our Caribbean brothers, you better roll back on that. And for ones that think that, oh, Rastafari, that's just a Jamaican thing. No, it's not. It's an Ethiopian something. So that's the unifying factor right there. But, duly noted, Jamaica does get its props. And it's the role that many of the poor righteous Rastafari elders and teachers that they played in the whole movement. Now today, today is a different story, right? See, that was history yesterday. We couldn't write that history, right? Yesterday, but today, now is the day. Today is the day. Today, if you would hear his voice, you know what I mean? Because if you can you can hear, hear. Right. So this is an interesting article. I'd like to go into a little bit of some details, just kind of going over some things right here. right? Because see, Yiddish is not Hebrew, but what Yiddish does, like what anybody's language do, it's like right now, when we're going through the Torah reading some Hebrew words, some Amharic words, some of our people, we pick up certain Amharic, or Afro-Semitic, expressions. One thing I like about this author is that, this writer, he touches on some things in this article that I think is so very important. You know what I mean? Especially maybe helping our people to understand that it says in mainstream American culture, Yiddish is an Eastern European blend of German with a great many Hebrew, Aramaic, and Slavic words. Now, when I talk about Gullah Geechee, and by extension, no doubt, this can extend to other patois like Jamaican patois and other Caribbean island patois, but I'm going to begin with the Gullah Geechee, right? Has a West African, right? Is that correct? West African, right? A West African blend, right? Of I would say Afro-Semitic. When I say Afro-Semitic, because we talk about the Semites and people think they're white folks and everything, but yet we have the Ethiopians and many black people who basically speak the language even better. I mean, even with the Mohammedans who were enslavers, the pale red white Arabs of our black people before the Europeans, right? They even had this Ethiopian dude named Bilal, right, singing their adhan. Why? Because he could speak it, he could articulate it better, and he had a better voice. You see what I'm saying? And even a lot of European Jews, right, that's the next video right there, had black men and women doing cantations of the biblical Hebrew, you know what I mean, and the Seder Siddur Hebrew, for the holy services, for the same reason. That's what kind of led to the whole Al Jolson kind of thing, the blackface. But they actually had black people. They want us to sing out the holy services. And this is a big thing. People don't know about it. So we talk about our dialects, the way we speak. It's kind of a blend. Of course, it's a blend of some European, European words. But there are some vernacular, like the whole kumbaya, which has been mocked and taken out of context. You say, it's not about, no kumbaya, kumbaya, like they try to put it down, right? But it was actually come by here, yeah. Come by here, Jah. Come by here, Yah. Like God, come by here. Now, notice they were saying come by kumbaya. They didn't say kumbaya. They said kumbaya, like when people say hallelujah. You see what I'm saying? So Yah, you see Yah, the savior name of Yisrael, Yah, right? So to compare and contrast right here, right? Amongst the diaspora, we as a diaspora here in Americas, once lost, now found, Beta Israel. We look at the Beta Israel. See, people say the Beta Israel is like the Beta Israel of Ethiopia. Yes, they are. But Beit Israel, Beta Israel mean the house of. If you know the scriptures, the prophecies, and even what we're talking about when we talk about Geechee, Gullah Geechee, and our people, we was enslaved, right? Taken across the Ethiopian Ocean, the Ethiopic Ocean, slave trade. Are ye not as the children of the Ethiopians, black people, right? Unto me, O children of Yisrael, right? So we have the other popular culture, right, of, you say, Jews, right? And there's some things that we can benefit as they have benefited from our people in Ethiopia. That's another video and another study that needs to be brought out. But speaking of mainstream American culture here from John Waters, it's a brief excerpt right here, right, concerning American culture, right, in the mainstream American culture, Yiddish and Eastern European blend of German with many Hebrew, Aramaic, and Slavic words is these days either a punchline like chutzpah. People say chutzpah. Like chutzpah is actually two Hebrew words put together. Kind of oddly, but, making the point, chutz like outside, and pa, or like we say, paw, right? It really be paw, but it says pa. Paw is like here, like chutzpah, right? Almost like somebody has chutzpah, like almost like they're out of here. Like going out of here, like you're going over, you're doing too much, right? And klutz, you're a klutz, they say klutz. That's those are Yiddish. Or historic footnote, a vanishing artifact of a long gone era. That's what people believe, right? They really believe that. And he touches on a few key highlights, but I think if one's, read and study the article and let's have some discussion, they would recognize that many European Jewish communities, they use the Ivrit, so to speak, or their form of the Yehudit. Now, Yehudit and Yiddish is two different. Yehudit is the way it says in the Bible, the Jews or the Judahite language, right? And often it's called Ivrit. And then you have Yiddish. So Yiddish is because they identify themselves as being of Yehuda. Yehuda contracted is Yid. Check? Right? So Yiddish, they took something from the scripture for the title, right? Yid, short for Yehuda, right? And then, you get Yiddish, but it's basically a Germanic language that does have some Hebrew, but many European Jews, they basically speak a lot of Yiddish, right? So despite supposedly vanishing into history, right? People say, oh, that was back in the days, when they first came over Ellis Island, blah, 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 right? But it has 250,000 speakers in America alone. Check that, 250,000 speakers in America alone, the majority of them in settings like these, like in New York, like in certain communities. And you see the name when they said Jewish communities such as Kiryas Joel? In proper Hebrew, biblical Hebrew is Kiryat. It's Kiryat. In the Yiddish mother tongue, they say Kiryas. Kiryas. It's like when they say Shavos. See, the Yiddish makes them say Shavos, but in biblical Afro-Semitic Hebrew, properly we'll say is Shabbat. But the dialect of European Jews had them say Shavos. So their Yiddish dialect, their mother tongue, right, kind of forces their tongue to say Shavos, right, Shavos, instead of saying Shabbat. So the T becomes an S and the B becomes a V. You check out how that goes right there. Just to give one a kind of example, so in their further studies, they'll see that there's a difference. Like here, the opinion writer, John Warther, he says that Yiddish is written with Hebrew letters. But as for the Hebrew language as a whole, the communities use it only for prayer. Did you get that right there? All right. So some of y'all know that we tried to do a couple of videos where we explored how can we kind of break this down for ones, because we was hearing ignorant things from, different ones in our community on different platforms. I'm like, oh man, he didn't really say that. I heard one guy say like shalom is Yiddish. I said, not shalom. Yiddish affects their way of saying shalom when some of them say sholem, or sholem. But really, shalom is Hebrew. But then they would say, some of the black Hebrews and Hebrew Israelites, they'll say shalawam, which is not. You know what I mean? But be that as it may, for everything else, right, besides prayer, you see what it says? They use Yiddish. You see it clearly. They speak it day in and day out. Now, that's why I saw it to say, well, Gullah Geechee, right? Because even though many of us are not full Gullah or Geechee speakers, right, it does affect our own dialects, especially as those Aframericans or so-called Black Americans that do have Gullah and Geechee roots. All right, so myself as a Rastafari Israelite, as a Yehudi, a Black Jew, Yehudi of the tribe of Judah, right? Reasoning with one of the captains from ISUPK, the Israeli School of Universal Practical Knowledge, Captain Azania. Right? I hope one's and one, if you know Captain Azania, whatever, let him check this out. And everything. If I can, I think he's on Facebook. I'll link him. So we was having back and forth about Rastafari and Ethiopia, or how you say Ethiopia. We blacks over here in the West. They was focusing more on us over here in the diaspora. And they, many of the Hebrew Israelites, they cut off. They have this problem with Africa, because of the Hamites and all of that. But then Hebrew is Homo-Semitic, Afro-Semitic. Right? But one thing that unified us is when we started to speak about the Gullah and the Geechee. You know what I mean? It just cut through it. And it even, in a sense, kind of made our Israelite affiliation, though, the difference that we say Rastafari, right? And, many of them have believed a lot of lies, on the level of Rastafari Ethiopia, just to put it plainly. But we do see a change, they're learning certain things, but let them be, right? My father's house has many mansions. So this line right here that we have highlighted, is very, very important just to understand the difference. Yiddish is written in the Hebrew letters. It's like right now, if we take the Hebrew letters, or even with Amharic, for example, and we start to write the way we speak, right? Right? And then when we come together and pray, we will pray in the Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, or the Royal Amharic, and Royal Amharic. But when we write everything out, so when outsiders see, they'll see all, like they'll see something written in Hebrew, but when we read it, like with the Yiddish speaking communities, this happened during the COVID time, right? It was kind of interesting. They were sending stuff around, and it was written in all these different languages, like New York State city information. And I saw the Hebrew letters. So I began to try to read it, and I'm like, what the, and I said, this is Yiddish. So it was Hebrew letters, but it was basically some Yiddish. And I don't, there's little words that I might know, but I didn't know no Yiddish. You see what I'm saying? So when I hear the ignoramus statements, and if you say, paleo Hebrew, paleo is just another font type. Font types, right? Font types. Font types is like you can choose a different font. You still are writing English, but you're just choosing a different font to write in it. And the font might look different, but doesn't change the language. Same thing with the paleo, right? In effect, there's older Hebrew, like there's older English, 1611, and there's modern English, like nowadays. Like we look at the old Bible, 1611, just to give an example, right? But it's still all English. They write book, B-O-O-K-E. We don't put an E at the end of book, right? But, that's how they wrote it then. Book-ka, ka. The ka was K-E. So they wrote book-ka, right? So it's interesting because many of our own people, black people, sometimes people write things the way they say things, right? And then people say, oh, you ignorant, you don't know how to write, you stupid. We need to stop that. We really need to stop that and stop those who do that right there. Because what they're doing is actually they have a comprehension of letters, but they're writing things exactly as they sound to them. You see, this also occurs in ancient Hebrew. That's why there's some interesting spellings in some places of the Hebrew scripture. But I just want to bring this part out right here. So I was able to get this, at least this much here, to share this with you. Because, we do little short videos right here, but at least to zoom in on it, right? So Yiddish is written with Hebrew letters, but as for the Hebrew language as a whole, these communities use it only in prayer. For everything else, they use Yiddish. They speak it day in and day out. Like characters in Sholem Aleichem stories. There's an author named Sholem. You see how Sholem with the O, right? It's really Shalom, but here he has Sholem Aleichem. So you see Sholem Aleichem, Aleichem, right, is the way they would say Shalom Aleichem. We would say Shalom Aleichem in our Afro-Semitic dialect, right? But there's characters in Sholem Aleichem stories that were later adapted as Fiddler on the Roof. But we have our own, right, stories, right? Just to show you a little bit of this, if we still have time right here. Let me do this right here. Let me move this over there and then go to that, right? This is some of what I collected here, right, to go into this. Look, you remember Briar Rabbit? I remember hearing about Briar Rabbit. Now, Walt Disney, they did a spin on, but Briar Rabbit, this is a part of Geechee Gullah culture. I don't know how many of y'all recall. I remember once talking about eating Briar Rabbit. I said, eating Briar Rabbit? Like Briar Rabbit. I remember my mom saying Briar Rabbit, and my Nana and others saying Briar Rabbit. I didn't know, and I come across this by studying the Gullah Geechee. There's some good websites on the internet and particularly on Facebook. Let's try to support that right there and support those who are teaching the language and preserving the culture, because it's an important part of who we be, right? So the story of Briar Rabbit and